On the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz comes an unprecedented exhibition about one of history's darkest moments. Auschwitz, not long ago, not far away, features more than 500 original objects, first-hand accounts, and survivor testimonies that tell the powerful story of the Auschwitz concentration camp, its history and legacy, and the underlying conditions that allowed the Holocaust to happen. On now exclusively at ROM. Tickets at rom.ca.
The piercing blast of a siren Tuesday evening in Israel at the Western Wall in Jerusalem was not signaling new incoming terrorist attacks. Instead, it was the beginning of the official ceremony for Yom ha-Zikaron, the National Memorial Day, for the 25,000 fallen soldiers and security personnel who have died throughout Israel's history, where the country's president and top military leaders stood, marking the televised event. While many Canadian Jews will mark the day by attending similar sessions across the country, one Toronto family is spending it in a way that's even more personal. The family of wounded Canadian soldier Ben Brown is in Israel this week. They planned to mark the solemn day in a low-key manner, as their 20-year-old son isn't yet recovered enough to join them at large public outdoor ceremonies. Ben has been in Israeli hospitals for the past 9 months, since July 2024, when the Golani Brigade combat soldier was hit in the head by shrapnel from a Hezbollah rocket fired from Lebanon. Although most of the war since October 7th has been going on to the south in Gaza, Hezbollah terrorists began almost daily rocket barrages into northern Israel in solidarity with Hamas, and Ben's unit was sent to a strategically located IDF army base on a mountaintop in the Golan Heights within shouting distance of the Lebanese border. Brown was the only one hurt that day in the attack. He needed several rounds of neurosurgery for his brain injury. He had to be in a medically induced coma for some time. And when he was out of danger, they've moved him to a rehabilitation center where he undergoes hours of therapy every day. And while the country focuses today on those who didn't come home, including about 900 soldiers killed just since the Hamas war with Israel started, the Brown family wants people to also think about the sacrifices made by those like their son, the 16,000 Israeli soldiers wounded in this conflict. I'm Ellen Besner, and this is what Jewish Canada sounds like for Wednesday, April 30th, 2025. Welcome to the CJN Daily, a podcast of the Canadian Jewish News, made possible in part thanks to the generous support of the Ira Gluskin and Maxine Gronowski-Gluskin Charitable Foundation. Ben Brown grew up in Toronto, attended private Jewish day school, as did his older brother, who eventually Ben followed to Israel. While the Browns' parents take great pride in their son's service, including Zach in 2021 during the last Israel-Hamas conflict, the Canadian brothers' decision to join up with the IDF has not been universally celebrated. One Canadian website critical of the IDF's actions in Gaza published a list of 85 names of people who had served with Israel, dating back nearly 80 years, and both Canadian boys are included. The writers took a lot of information from us at the CJN, as our stories soon after Ben was wounded reported how their synagogue and school communities in Toronto began holding prayer vigils. Despite all this unwanted negative spotlight from Canada and the family's preliminary decisions about whether they should try to sue that website or at least shut it down, that's not a priority right now for the Browns, who agreed to update us on their wounded son's journey and what's next. Benji, as they call him, isn't yet well enough to carry on a conversation with me, so his father, Jeffrey Brown, joins from Ra'anana. Where am I reaching you?
Actually, there's a lounge upstairs in the rehab center for the soldiers, which is where our son is at. And it's empty right now. There's fortunately fewer and fewer soldiers here, because there hasn't been so much conflict, so there's not people coming and going. But there are still quite a few here, too many, including our son.
You were in Haifa for a while, and when or how long ago did Ben transfer to Ra'anana?
Okay, so Benjamin arrived in Haifa in July, and near the end of the third week of July. He was med-flighted from his post up in Har Dov, which is on the Lebanon-Syria border, after a Hezbollah missile attack on his base. And he went right to Rambam in Haifa. And he was in Haifa from July until October 1st, when he was well enough to transfer to rehab. And he's been in rehab since October 1st. And will stay here until he's ready to go, which they're actively working on.
So 9 months just this week since the injury.
Correct.
Wow. But you're closer now in Renana. You guys are staying there temporarily.
Exactly correct. And everything is coordinated through the Ministry of Defense and through One Family Fund and a bunch of friends and family, some of the friends we didn't even know we had before, but you really see people step up and help in times of need. We've never felt wanting for lack of help, support, assistance, or anything. Thank God he's here. He's been treated with compassion and love and great medical care and great therapy by everybody involved. Most of whom, I will add, are not Jewish.
I wanted to ask you about that. On your social media posts, you were giving gifts during Ramadan to some of the staff. Tell us what that's like, having Israeli non-Jews being responsible for your family, for your son's rehab.
Quite frankly, they're the majority of caregivers, whether they're physicians, nurses, or support staff, therapists, or orderlies. There's all types. And none of it really seems to matter. We're very happy. We feel that everybody is treating our son professionally and with respect and compassion, with an end goal of getting him back to where he was before.
Can you describe your daily routine and Ben's daily routine too?
Well, Ben's typical routine is evolving as Benjamin gets better. But Ben's typical routine, he gets up 7:30, 8 o'clock. He gets cleaned up, gets showered, eats breakfast, and there's a therapy schedule. It started out with maybe a few hours of therapy a day to Benjamin's probably getting close to 5 or 6 hours of therapy a day now, as they're really pushing him, and also a lot of self-therapy, which comes from my wife Annette, who's really the one who coordinates everything, and myself and a bunch of Benji's friends, and our oldest son Zachary, as you know, lives nearby at Herzliya with his wife, and Zachary has coordinated a schedule so that somebody's always here helping Benjamin out, if it's not myself. And so it's been pretty remarkable, because one thing just to rely on the hospital staff, you really can't do it, because they can't be with you 24/7. So you need to have friends and family with you. And Benjamin always has that. And Benjamin's now starting to get out for Shabbat and for Yom Tov. So we all went away as a family for Pesach together. And he comes to the apartment nearby in Renana that we now have, and he can come with us. And we have somebody come with, like personal care attendant who comes with us when we're away, because there's some things that Benjamin does not want us doing to help him. We're getting there. It's been a long haul. It's a long, exhaustive haul for Benjamin, but he's really coming along. And he'll be 200% by the time he's done with us.
What is left for him to be able to recover?
Benjamin is not totally independent yet in everything. He's walking, but he needs, support around him in case he's, loses it. He feeds himself. He needs help with some of his personal care. He's quite communicative and fully cognitive of everything. One of the last things that told us would come back was his speech. When speech is coming back, there's other soldiers here that came in about the same time, and they're all in different places in terms of where their rehab is. But it's beautiful to see everybody making progress. It's truly remarkable. So we're well along. I can't imagine, if you think about the journey that Ben has been through and we've been through, from a coma to where it's like we're contemplating next steps, where he's out of rehab and he's independent and he's going to be able to go to school. That's the end goal with everything. No reason to think that that's not going to be.
Maybe some listeners who are not Jewish might not understand what the pull was for lone soldiers or Canadian kids to want to join the IDF, especially now since October 7th. What do you know about, through your son's decisions, what that meant to them, why they wanted to do that?
So Zachary made his decision to join the army when he was in yeshiva, and they do these day trips or overnight trips called Tiyulim, and his bus was stopped because there'd just been a terror attack on the road that he was on, and he drove by a bus stop with dead Israelis. Okay, think about this kid is 18, 19 years old, and this is what he sees. And that was a connectivity for him to, it's like they're attacking Jewish people because they're Jewish. It's like, I can't ignore that. So that's the reason why Zachary chose to go. Benjamin's a very different kid. His impetus to go was he did many of the yeshiva do a side trip during the year. They go to Poland. They go to Auschwitz. It's like the March of the Living. And Benjamin went on March of the Living, and that was it for him. And, he decided he wanted to stay in yeshiva extra and then do army service as well. The interesting stuff is, I think only 10% of Israeli military personnel are combat soldiers. And the lone soldiers, a lot of them are combat soldiers, include both of my kids. And both Zachary and Benjamin had to do what they were put there for.
Is there a Holocaust story in your family or your wife's family?
Not in my family, but my wife's parents are both survivors. Her father, Alva Shalom, he was an Auschwitz survivor, has the number on his arm. She was a work factory. My wife is Polish survivor family. And they wound up settling in Toronto like so many other people.
On the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz comes an unprecedented exhibition about one of history's darkest moments. Auschwitz, not long ago, not far away, features more than 500 original objects, first-hand accounts, and survivor testimonies that tell the powerful story of the Auschwitz concentration camp, its history and legacy, and the underlying conditions that allowed the Holocaust to happen. On now exclusively at ROM. Tickets at rom.ca.
We need to talk a bit about the other sort of news that was happening while you were worrying about whether Benji would ever walk again. And this was when a Canadian newspaper published the identities of about 85 former IDF soldiers dating back, generations, 30, 50, 70 years. And your guys were on there. What has that been like for you and your family when you learned of this? I think I actually told you about it.
I'm proud of my boys. My boys are serving their people. And there's nothing to be ashamed of, nothing to be embarrassed about. There are Canadians of Ukrainian ancestry that choose to go fight for a just cause in the Ukraine to this day. Why aren't the same people who are doxing people like those 85 Canadians, why are they not doxing other people who go do this elsewhere? We both know the answer to that question. So, no, I don't care. My kids don't care. My kids have done nothing wrong. They do nothing wrong. They're very proud of what they've done. They serve their people with honor. The person who wrote that article, I don't think he can say that. My kids are net givers, not net takers. Wonder how these people and all their protests and their investigative reports are funding themselves.
Was Benji aware that he was part of this too?
Yeah, but I don't really think it registers. Zachary knows more than Benjamin, and Benjamin never really cared about anything like that. And doesn't read the newspaper, isn't on social media or anything like that. That's not who he is.
It's Yom ha-Zikaron in Israel. First of all, what, if anything, is your family doing? Are you part of any sort of commemoration events, or how is it affecting you?
So last week was the second Yom HaShoah we've ever experienced in Israel. It's pretty low key. There's the moment of silence, and things are shut down for the night of and through midday in Israel. Tomorrow will be our first Yom HaZikaron, and Thursday will be our first Yom HaTzmaut. Where we are in Renana, flags are flying every place, every building, every car, every street pole, and there's a big memorial service set up for tonight in Renana that we will go to. In Yom HaTzmaut, if you do group things, we'll be going to our friends, Canadians, who live in Modi'in for a barbecue, which is a very typical thing.
Is Ben going to go with you to the ceremony or no?
I'm not sure if Ben's going to go tonight because they're closing the streets and it's going to be very, very crowded. And it might be a little much, but tomorrow he's got on Yom HaTzmaut, he's got a full day of celebrating. And so he's going to go with Zachary all day, and he's going to go to starting with a breakfast. And he's then going to go to Tel Aviv to a yeshiva for a barbecue with a bunch of friends. And he'll have a pretty full celebratory day as well. People might be asking, how can the country celebrate with those hostages still where they are? Throughout the war, it's the resilience of the Israeli people is something I've experienced that I had never experienced before. Life goes on here. Are they happy? No, they want the war to be over once and for all. They want the hostages home once and for all. They want everything to be finished. But these things take time, and life goes on. People are working. People are exercising. People are going places. People go to school. People go out for pizza. People go out for dinner. Life goes on in Israel, even though it is very much still a country at war and a country that has experienced horrible, horrible trauma.
And I know that there's been some talk, a lot of talk, even in the last 2 days, of Haredis who are protesting the recruitment to have more religious Jews be drafted. And your children went through the yeshiva system. They're not the same, but I'm wondering how this impacts you when you see this, when your children put their lives on the line for Israel, and they are not.
It's David Ben-Gurion's biggest mistake. And the Declaration of Independence and the lack of a constitution to this day, to get the declaration through, they made this cover for the 10,000 Haredim that lived in the land. And he said, oh, they'll see us rebuilding the land, toiling the soil. They'll love it. They'll want to become a part of it. And I think maybe he used Rav Kook as an example of a Haredi guy who was also a Zionist. And hasn't turned out quite that way, with a burgeoning Haredi population that is quite insular. Certainly they are a very powerful political establishment, and they get their funding to support their lifestyles. And to other people, whether they're religious like us or not. By the way, I think it's a religious mitzvah to live in the land as a Jew. It was a beautiful thing. So for the Haredim, there's a benefit for all of us when people learn Torah, when people daven and do things like that. And sure, there's plenty that did it for Benjamin. But overall, it's a frustration for many Israelis because it's very expensive. They're in a system that frankly doesn't produce graduates, shall we say, that are integrable into society, or particularly come with skills that could be of assistance in the military. And it will evolve over time. It has to be forced to some degree, in my opinion. But they will see, I can leave my little community. I can join the military and be with other people similar to me and not be exposed to co-ed units and things like that. And continue to have my level of kashrut, continue to have my davening, continue to do everything that I do. But now I'm serving the state that is supporting me, my family, and the things that are important to me. That will evolve over time. Otherwise, it's not sustainable. There will be a backlash. And the alternative I joke about is make them a part of a peace deal. If there ever were to be a peace deal, okay, you're not Zionist, you don't believe in the Zionist state, okay, become a part of the Palestinian state. You know that'll never happen.
Well, no, but I'm asking because there might be some resentment in your family. It's like your boys who are religious went and did this, and now you're, in the hospital putting the pieces back together, and they're not. They're protesting, and I just on Yom ha-Zikaron, and I just wonder how that sits with you. Like, is there any anger about it?
No, there's no anger. They are fellow Jews. They are living in the land of Israel. We deal with them. Some of them are here in rehab. You see the families. They're here for different reasons, or military. Than getting hurt in the army. But no, there's plenty of people that are angry about it as a society, and I think that's fair. Me, no, I'm focused on my son and have gratitude for the people that help him get back to where he was before. I will tell you what does burn my butt is the Neturei Kata in North America, and the ill-advised misperception they cause non-Jews to get, well, these guys are rabbis. I think that's a very harmful thing, more harmful than what's going on here in Israel. And the Neturei Kata is a problem.
You mentioned, just to end off, a lot of people back are being praying for Benji. I personally did all summer, every single day. And I wondered what is still going on in terms of back here in Canada and your support back in your community.
It's continuing strong. Both at my synagogue, they say pray from Benjamin every single davening, every single Shabbat. At his school, at the Bnei Akiva schools, the same thing. I'm sure it happens at other shuls as well. There's quite a few Tehillim group, what people say, Psalms for Benjamin, that have been going strong. And there's, I think, 2 or 3 on WhatsApp. And here in Renana, there's a whole community that has adopted us in Benjamin to make sure that we're included in their prayers and we have everything that we need, for our physical and spiritual well-being. The most important thing is people to continue to daven and do good things and stand up to Israel every opportunity that they can. Particularly, I see the Bathurst and Shepherd group, the Walk for Israel. These are all the most important thing. I just look back on what caused Benjamin to want to join the army. He went to Auschwitz and saw, and I see what's going on today in North America and elsewhere. The whole concept of a strong man. It's a little bit scary. We only have ourselves to take care of. And anybody who thinks otherwise doesn't have to look too far back in history or listen to some commentary of political leaders, not just in Canada, but in the United States as well.
Do you still have this Ben Strong? Is that what you still do?
Oh, yeah. He does his gesture. It's all over the place. There's this thing he does. If let's say he does this, and his new gesture is this. He does A-OK. And it's not just about Benji Strong. It is about Benji Strong, but it's also about Israel Strong. We've learned that in rehab, it's also about Golani Strong, which is Benjamin is a Golan chick. And that goes a long way here. It goes a real long way. And yeah, we get strength through everything. So Benji Strong is going strong and it's working well.
Thank you so much for helping us to get an update. We send you all our best, and we're thinking of you on this solemn and then happier occasion later in the week.
I'll see you next week.
And that's what Jewish Canada sounds like for this episode of the CJN Daily, made possible in part thanks to the generous support of the Ira Gluskin and Maxine Gronowski-Gluskin Charitable Foundation. At least 10 Canadians were killed on or after October 7th. Ben Mizrahi, Neva Epstein, Shir Georgi, Tiferet Lapidot, Vivian Silver, Adi Vital Kaploun, Alexandre Luc, and Judith Weinstein-Haggai, whose body is still in Hamas hands. 2 IDF soldiers with Canadian roots were killed, Yonadav Levenstein and Ori Bornstein. Before he was wounded, Ben Brown had 1 month left in his compulsory military service, and he decided to stay in Israel and work as a counselor at a program for religious young Jews like himself that combines Torah learning with internships in the high-tech field. Our show is produced by Zachary Judah Kaufman and Andrea Varsany. The executive producer is Michael Freeman, editorial direction is from Mark Weisblatt, and the music is by Dov Beck-Levine. Thanks for listening.
On the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz comes an unprecedented exhibition about one of history's darkest moments. Auschwitz, not long ago, not far away, features more than 500 original objects, first-hand accounts, and survivor testimonies that tell the powerful story of the Auschwitz concentration camp, its history and legacy, and the underlying conditions that allowed the Holocaust to happen. On now exclusively at ROM. Tickets at rom.ca.